12th verse onwards, he said, I regard all this that you say to me as true, O Keshava. Neither the gods nor the demons know your manifestation. As we understood, the gods refers to the introverted people. God is not an object of thought, so we cannot understand God intellectually. Any amount of intellectual exercise will not help us gain that actual experience of Brahman. So here he says neither the gods. So gods refers to the introverted people. And then nor the demons refers to the unrighteous, the extroverted people who pursue the materialistic world. They also have no experience of Brahman. But the wise people understand the manifestation is different from the unmanifest. They are able to separate the manifestation. The manifestation is the world. They are able to separate the manifestation. They understand it. It is different from the unmanifest reality. They get to Brahman. This was the last that we saw. We'll move on. We'll take up verse 15. Swayamevātmanātmānam vedhatvam purushottama bhuta bhavana bhuteshu deva deva jagatpate. Swayamevātmanātmānam vedhatvam purushottama bhuta bhavana bhuteshu deva deva jagatpate. Verily, swayam atmanam atmanam. Swayam atmana atmanam. You know yourself. You yourself know yourself by yourself. Oh Purushottama. Another name for Lord Krishna, Arjuna is addressing. Arjuna is saying, you know yourself by yourself, O source of beings, Bhuta Bhavanaha, Bhuteshu, O Lord of beings, Deva Deva, O God of gods, O ruler of the world, Jagatpate. So he qualifies the Lord Purusha Uttama. Purushottama means Purusha is being, Uttama is supreme being. O supreme being, O Lord. Continuing from the previous verse, the gods, the righteous people don't know the self. The unrighteous people cannot know the self. And who knows the self? You know yourself by yourself. Through yourself. You yourself know yourself by yourself. Swayamevatmanatmanam. See, the translation also, yourself is repeated thrice. Why is it repeated thrice? Because the text gives it 3 times, he says yourself. Many commentaries you find they may not use it. They may not repeat that many times. But you have to be true to the text. Swayam, Atmana, Atmanam. Yourself, yourself, yourself. Now what he's trying to say is, end of the day, who knows the waker? The dreamer cannot experience the waking state. The deep sleeper cannot experience the waking state. It's only the waker that knows the waker. Like when you wake up into the waking state, you know who you are. No amount of knowledge of the waking world to a dreamer will give the experience to the waker, of the waker. Can you? Like I come into your dream and with the knowledge of your waking state, I come and try and educate you as to who you are. And I convince you that you are not the dreamer who you think yourself to be, but you are the waker. Any amount of knowledge of the dream will not give you the actual experience of the waking state. Can it? Who has a knowledge of the waking state? Only the waker himself. So just as the waker has a knowledge of the waking state, any amount of knowledge of Brahman in the waking state, you will not have knowledge of Brahman. Who knows Brahman? Brahman knows Brahman himself. Atman knows Atman itself. So the best way is to understand through the waking state and dream state. The dreamer has no knowledge of the waker. Similarly, the waker has no knowledge of the Atman, Purushottama, Supreme Self. So therefore they say the realization is actually a becoming. You become one with the self. In fact, they say the self-realization, the language breaks. Just to say this, self-realization is not an experience. You can't experience the self. No, obviously we will only use the language we understand, because all our life we are going through various experiences, not only in the waking, the dream and deep sleep. So we try to use the language we understand and try to project it to the fourth state. So they say fourth state is not an experience. Vaishnavi, you know what brings about an experience? The fundamentals of Vedanta. A life is defined as an Anubhava Dhara. Anubhava Dhara, Dhara means a stream or a flow or a continuity. Anubhavam is an experience. So life is nothing but a flow of experiences. If your experiences are bitter, your life is joyful, is it? No, she's thinking so hard. If your experiences are hardly any experience in a day, what is your day? Boring, morose, no activity to do. How many times you'll see the same WhatsApp message, the same feed of what's happening in the world around you? Nothing to, no activity. So you're dragging, your day becomes boring, boredom sets in. But if the same day is packed with too many activities, experiences are too many, multifold, your day becomes dynamic, active, robust, full of energy. So the nature of experience determines what life you experience. So the quality and quantity of experience, as we say, defines the life. If the experiences are good, life is good. Experiences are bad, life is bad. If experiences are too many, life is dynamic. Not many, is boring, morose. Quality and quantity. Then what is it that defines an experience? What is an experience? Welcome back, sir. So I'm asking you, therefore I'm welcoming you back to the classroom. So what brings about an experience? The mic given. What is an experience? Just press and hold it. Yeah.
It's an event.
What brings about an event? What you are going through is an event. What we are experiencing now is an experience.
Consciousness.
Okay. When you are doing nothing, what happened to the consciousness?
It's still there.
Was there an experience?
No, I was in fact going to say, to have an experience, there has to be an experiencer.
Who's the experiencer?
Consciousness. The self.
He's made up his mind. Now it's very difficult to get anything out of him. So everything will go back to that only.
No, in other words, what I'm saying is when in the final analysis, there is no duality. There is no experience and experiencer, it's one.
I'm not talking from the final standpoint. I'm talking what we go through. We go through experience, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes, Ma? Just if you could use your microphone, because just to get the online people also.
Okay, it's your senses which help you experience. You experience life through senses. You experience an event or situation through your five senses.
That's only the gross world. Okay, the world comes into you through the senses.
And the mind.
Then there is feeling and mind. And,
Feelings, etc. So there is the experiencer. Who's the experiencer?
You.
The individual. No,
The
I.
When
When I ask you, sir, what is your experience? You're talking from your perspective. Am I right? Somebody asks you, how was your experience? You're describing your narration of what happened there, what transpired there. So you are from the perceiver's perspective. So the experiencer is the perceiver, the individual, I, right? What else is required in an experience? You can't have this experience on your own, can you? You have come to the Wisdom Institute. You have this setup, this facility. You have the people, the guru talking, and there is a dialogue between you and me and everybody else in this setup. So the object of experience has to be there. There has to be what is being experienced, isn't it? You need to have the experiencer. You need to have the object of experience and the interaction between the subject and the object. Oh, you've changed the position. Isn't it? Yet, so there are three essential elements in any experience. So any experience has the experiencer plus the experienced plus the experiencing, the interaction between the subject and object. So the experiencer is the subject, the experienced is the object, the experiencing is the interaction. You're following, Vaishnavi? There are three aspects in any experience. Yes, sir.
In my opinion, a good night's sleep is a great experience. But what is the object there? But because when you wake up, it's very pleasurable.
Right.
So you had a very pleasant experience.
Yes.
But where does the object in sleep?
So if you have a disturbed sleep, the dreamer is the experiencer. The dream world, which consists of his dream wife, dream child, dream grandchild. Grandchild, no?
Yeah.
Dream grandchild.
No, is sleep an experience?
Absolutely. It's a dream experience. So the dreamer is separate from the dream objects. The dreamer has bought a new Harley Davidson and he's gone for a long, beautiful ride on a Sunday morning, enjoying his ride on his Harley Davidson. So Harley Davidson is his object of possession. Who is the possessor? The dreamer. The dreamer enjoys his ride on a Harley Davidson.
No, but I am talking of dreamless sleep, which we call sushupti.
Correct.
Is that also an experience?
Absolutely. So the dreamless sleep or deep sleep, who is the experiencer? The deep sleeper. What is he being experienced? Nothingness. The interaction between the deep sleeper and the absence of thoughts, nothingness is being experienced is like, for example, for the next few seconds, I don't say anything. What is it that you all experience?
Silence.
You have to, somebody has to experience that silence as well. So the deep sleeper is experiencing that silence of no thoughts or thoughtlessness, temporary thoughtlessness, which is experienced by the deep sleeper. So when you wake up, that experience is being communicated to the waker, and the waker recognizes, I had a very sound sleep yesterday. Somebody has to communicate that experience. Who is receiving that experience? Who is acknowledging the experience? The waker is acknowledging the experience of the deep sleeper. So there is, even in deep sleep, there is the deep sleeper. What is experienced is that silence or quietude, and that interaction, there is a deep sleep experience. So just like the waking world, the same principle applies to the dream, the same principle applies to the deep sleep. We are able to cognize it. We are able to perceive. The intellect there actually is a witness to that silent experience. When you say nothingness, actually the thin ray of intellect is there in deep sleep. The thin ray, and that actually silently observes what transpires in the sleep. And if it is a sound sleep, that's rightfully communicated when you wake up. It's a freshness. It refreshes you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So coming back to the statement we said that self-realization is not an experience. What is self-realization? Self-realization. Harish, you know what is self-realization? If self-realization is not an experience, what is it?
It is the final goal. It is the ultimate objective.
No, it is the final goal, but it is not an experience. As the text says, you know yourself by yourself. Like a dreamer cannot experience the waker. The deep sleeper cannot experience the waker. The waker knows the waker. When he wakes up, the waker knows himself. Exactly the same way, any amount of exchange of these ideas in the waking state, you do not have knowledge of that self. Only when, who knows the self? Atman knows itself. State of being. So, I wanted to come from Harish. Harish, so if self-realization is not an experience, now why we say not an experience? Because there is no subject, object, and relationship. In fact, when you say an experience, there is a duality. There are two factors. Me separate from the world, isn't it?
Yes.
You understand that that is established, that there
Yes.
is world and you separate, and you experience the world, isn't it?
Yes.
But when we talk of self-realization, what are the two factors there at self-realization? What are the two entities?
There is no duality. There's just the oneness.
Correct. But in order to reach that, cross that oneness, what are the two factors here? Can you tell me? You see it clearly on the board?
Yes, I can see, Guruji.
Okay, great. So what are the two things that exist for self-realization? Okay, what is the object of experience for self-realization? What are you seeking? Are you not seeking God?
Yes, yes, correct.
So the two factors for self-realization, Jama, is you and and God, isn't it? And when so self-realization is not an experience. So self-realization is not an experience. The language they say is self-realization is a becoming. Now you may be saying, sir, you're playing with words, but we're trying to convey which words cannot convey. That's the struggle. These are words we are just playing with words, but what we're trying to convey is these two become one. So there is no more duality. You reach a state of the non-dual state. So to describe that non-dual state, we can't say it is an experience, because an experience requires duality. But Brahman or Atman is not duality, it's a non-dual experience. To describe the non-dual experience, they say it's a becoming. It is not an experience. You can't have an anubhavam of it. You just become it. It's not something which can be experienced. Yes, sir.
It's certainly not my intention to start an academic or pedantic discussion, but I'm genuinely confused about one thing.
Yes, sir.
This which you have explained, it's as far as I know, it's an Advaitic point of view.
It is.
Whereas Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita have a different approach, and they also have interpreted the Gita. So how exactly do they reconcile this business of they should, to reach a state of being, they should not be an experiencer. The experience and experiencer are one. So how have they addressed this issue from, let's say, from a Dvaitis or a Vishishta Dvaitis point of view? How does one understand this? Because I'm genuinely confused.
I don't doubt your genuinity in us. I can understand. And I respect that. So the duality, Dvaita, Vishishta Advaita, qualified monism, and then Advaita, which is non-dualism. It's only different standpoints. There is no disparity, nor is there a contradiction between what these three acharyas or the three schools of thoughts are saying. If I were you, if I were to put these three acharyas in one room, they'll have no difference between their opinions, because they know they all are saying the same thing, but from a different standpoint, which is very beautifully reconciled by Hanumanji. Hanumanji is giving his relationship with God. There's a phrase which Hanumanji says about his relationship with Lord Rama. Deha bhavena dasosmi. Jiva bhavena twadam shakaha. Atma bhavena tvamevaham. When I consider my body, I am your servant. When I consider myself from my mind and intellect, I am a part of you, because you have consumed my emotions and thoughts. I am in you, you are in me. So there is still existence separation, but I am in you, you are in me. Atma bhavena tvamevaham. I don't see a separation between you and me, Rama, when I consider myself from the Atman. Can you imagine Hanuman saying that to Rama? That you and I are one. He is considered probably as the greatest bhakta. Devotees separate from the Lord. You look up to the Lord. So the standpoint of a body, mind, intellect. Dualism, qualified dualism, monism, and then Advaita. The three standpoints is from which standpoint you're talking. So when Advaita school of thought talks, they're talking from an absolute standpoint. The whole philosophy should be understood from a relative standpoint and absolute standpoint. And that confusion comes from a sadhak, or the confusion comes in understanding concept when you don't understand what standpoint they're talking. So Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya are talking from a relative standpoint. So that's why I said they'll be laughing at what the followers have got caught up in the mess. The acharyas have no differences. The followers have a difference. The gurus understand what they have said, but the followers have not understood. I don't see a difference. So I don't see one from the other. But they spoke from a standpoint. You can't say, why have you spoken from that standpoint? That is, they took that standpoint and spoke. Yes, to describe that. But so the difference, not that they're wrong, they're very right from their standpoint. So when you talk from an absolute standpoint, Brahman alone is. When you talk from a relative standpoint, yes, there is existence of me and God, and I am trying to reach God. There exists. The sadhana is where I'm trying to get to Brahman. How can I say the world doesn't exist? Can I say the world is Maya? You can't. So as an aspirant, we are aspiring to reach Brahman or God. So there is the duality of me and God. Could you?
Those acharyas also realize the souls.
Realize that?
They are also realized souls.
Absolutely. They all realize souls. But they are talking to a particular audience and trying to take them along the journey. If I'm talking as an abhyasa, I'm talking from a relative standpoint. But I'm talking from Anubhava, it's a different standpoint. If I'm talking to a practitioner, I have a certain approach, but I'm talking from my own personal experience as a certain approach. It's all a conversation in a particular context that has nothing to do with their actual experience. They're all one and the same. Their experience is one and the same. And they are not contradicting. I'm actually quoting the Shastras. I'm taking from the Shastras, where it reconciles the apparent misconception. In reality, there is no difference. Yes, use the mic, Jama.
Guruji, if the experiencer and the experienced become one, the subject and the object, then there's no experience at all.
Correct.
So that is becoming what you say.
Correct. The
Is that
becoming is when
Yeah.
there is no distinction between
The subject and the
subject
object,
and object.
they become one. So there's no experience at all.
It is therefore we can't use the language of what we experience. Therefore, they say
So
it's
that
a
is why-
becoming.
That's why it's not an experience, they say.
Therefore, it's not. It's just you become one with the whole.
Hmm.
It's a realization. It's a becoming.
Hmm.
You become one with the totality.
Thank you, Guru.
Huh? But we keep saying that, but until all of this cannot give, that's what I'm saying. Any amount of knowledge of the waker to the dreamer will not help him to experience until he wakes up. So all the knowing, all the knowledge, all the understanding is only to no. See, if any amount of effort, like saying, I can give you an elaborate description of who Vasantama is, the Veka, to Vasantama is dreaming herself to be. Who would you be dreaming yourself to be, man? Let's say you are Sarah. You're dreaming yourself to be Sarah, a young 18-year-old girl, somewhere in New Zealand. You're a New Zealander getting into going to be an adult. The wings of freedom you're going to get. I come into the dream, into Sarah's world, and I tell you, you're not who you think you are. You are somebody else. You are Vasanta. Ooh, what is Vasanta? You're not even able to pronounce your name. What Vasanta? What? You'll say. Yet, all the knowledge of the Veka, which is Vasanta, to Sarah, can it help Sarah to understand who Vasanta is? Any amount of knowledge of what Vasanta is not. I can even show you proof of photographs and where you reside and the family and your whole entire life that you have led of Vasantas. I'm giving proof with your IDs. I'm showing to Sarah. I don't understand what you're talking. It cannot give enlightenment of Vasanta until Sarah wakes up, and that's when you wake up. Who knows Vasanta? Vasanta knows Vasanta. Look at the challenge here. The best of gurus coming, giving, enlightening you to Sarah. No amount of knowledge will help you until you wake yourself. That's what the first phrase. Swayameva atmanatmanam. No amount of dabbling is going to give you that experience. You will experience yourself, through yourself, by yourself. Then you may say, sir, what is the use of all this knowledge? Exactly all the exercise that we are going in the waking state, you say, is not going to help me about to get to that Brahman. Then why am I going to all the exercise? What is the purpose of all this exercise of trying to thrash out this knowledge, trying to make sense of this knowledge? And it's not easy. What is the purpose? It is all intellectual exercise. It may be entertaining. The object is not to entertain you all. Objective is to understand the scriptures, understand the text, to get that essence out of this knowledge. How does it help in my development? I did, if I'm not wrong, I did clarify it last week, didn't I? I mentioned this, I clarified it. You remember, Sanjay? Don't say I quit early, which you do with permission.
No, I don't remember specifically the answer you gave last week. But
Not clear. Okay, you can think afresh.
But the thinking afresh, the idea that I'm having is, with all this knowledge, we're getting closer to the self by saying this isn't what we think. It's not this. It's not this. So we have some idea of what God is, but all this knowledge is telling us as we learn it, no, it's not that, it's something greater. No, it's not that, it's something greater.
Yeah, but all this exercise, how does it help you? It helps you in some way, it serves you. Otherwise, it's a big joke. All of this is a big joke.
Yeah. It gives perspective to us, to the mind, to the senses, and it gives our intellect something to work towards, something stronger to work towards. So it's just gives a certain focus, gives a certain discipline.
Indeed, it gives.
And that in turn settles the mind. It gives a peace of mind. So the mind is still. And when the mind is still, it feels like that's only when the intellect can shine.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah, you've said it in your own way. You're absolutely right. I would like to hear from Annapurnama. She spelled it out as well. Right, Sanjay? This is what exactly I said.
Hari Om, Guruji.
Yes, ma, Hari Om. Solungo.
I mean, by this knowledge itself is great in the sense it makes us realize there is a higher goal. I mean, and helps us to chisel out all the hurdles like desires and realize that this is not it, when we face something terrestrial. I mean, more.
Correct. As you also put it in the chat, it helps you to chisel out, it helps you to negate what you are caught up in. It helps you to liberate from the bondage. So intellect and wisdom works as an antidote for avidya. What is avidya, sir? How does avidya express, ma? How does ignorance express in a spiritual sadhak's life? Oh, what spiritual sadhak? What is avidya? What is ignorance? How does it express?
Avi-
Yes, ma? How does it express?
Avidya is thinking that this world is real, not realizing that there is something greater, much, much greater than our, and seeking it, not seeking it. That is ignorance.
Ignorance of believing that the world is real and there's nothing else other than it. All right. What gets you caught up in the world? As you say, it is your own avidya manifests in the form of your vasanas, desires, and your attachments. Can you imagine, Ushama, having no attachment and no desire? Relatively. See, if you can imagine this knowledge helping yourself, that's what you're here for, to help yourself evolve, to become a better person. When you know yourself very well, you know exactly where your mind has developed a certain attachment, and you know the pangs of mental anxiety and restlessness that attachment causes. Imagine if you are free from that mental bondage and experiencing that freedom, and yet you're doing what you're obliged to do, but you experience that mental liberation of that no attachment. How beautiful it is, isn't it? So avidya expresses is like shackling us, is bondage. So the knowledge and the wisdom that we are gathering, which is in the Shastras, helps us negate neti, negate the bondage arising from avidya, which is through vasanas, desires, and attachments. So once you get liberated to the extent you are liberated, to that extent you become the self. And the most interesting point is this becoming of the self is not 0 and 100%. This becoming of the self is gradual, proportional. It is possible that I have discovered 40% of the self, or 60% of the self, or 80% of the self. So to that extent, I've realized the self. To that extent, I have liberated from the bondage of desires, attachments, and vasanas. Until I completely realize, 100% realization. So it's not that ignorance from 0 and then you suddenly catapulted to that extreme state of moksha or liberation. In between is all gray area. No. It's all actually shades of, from black, shades of gray until it becomes milky pure white. This journey is only possible to the extent you have combated avidya. Therefore, constant smarana, nitya, anitya, viveka vicharam. That vicharam, that contemplation between the real and unreal. So constantly this intellectual exercise must go on so that I am able to get myself freed from the claws, from the pangs of attachment and desire. That bondage is terrible. No point getting involved in that. So you've got to get out of it. So this constancy of abhyasa liberates us from that. But that actual experience ultimately is that becoming. Is like ultimately perhaps only difference between Sarah and Vasanta here. Vasanta can gain wisdom throughout. Sarah, nothing can happen. It's not that Sarah is getting convinced in the dream that, oh, she's not Sarah. It's not possible. That's only different between dream and waking. Because you can't put in any effort in the dream state. You only put effort in the waking state. So that effort makes a difference. That marks a difference. Sir, that phone, that your phone has been bothering me because your phone light is on, sir. Your phone light is on. I've not been able to concentrate all the while.
The evolution is gradual evolving is proportional, you say, but in practice, it is like snake and ladders. We don't continually incrementally grow. Sometimes it looks like we are evolving and then there is a downfall. So
That never happens, sir. Spiritual journey is not snake and ladder.
Yeah.
So I don't agree to you. The snake and ladder doesn't exist in the spiritual path. They say spiritual evolution is like crossing a bridge, they say. Interesting the way they put it, you know. They say spiritual journey is like crossing a bridge. And every step that you take while you cross the bridge, that portion of the bridge actually collapsed behind you. There's no retracing. You can't retrace the steps back. So there's no question of devolving. So if you have crossed 30% of the bridge, 30% of the bridge has collapsed. So only rest 70 has to be crossed. That is a comfort zone we have. Whatever wisdom you have gathered, that cannot go. That will not devolve. So if a person dies at 30%, he will start next Janma from 31. That guarantee. So that 30% is secure. You will not lose that.
but this snake and ladder somewhere in Bhagavad Gita it comes and
No, Gita, it doesn't come, sir. To my knowledge, it doesn't come. No, this is what it is. So the knowledge that you acquire may go. So you're measuring yourself constantly. The problem I can see where you're measuring yourself with your areas of your weakness. Like yesterday, Appara Garu was talking about his difficulty of controlling weakness for sweets. He took an example. So if you keep evaluating yourself with your weakness, you will never know how strong you have become. You'll always find yourself weak. So it will be difficult to gauge yourself. But you are established in certain factors. That is your strength. That is your wisdom.
it is irreversible.
Sorry, sir?
It is irreversible.
Irreversible. What we are told is the wisdom that is gathered will not be overpowered by avidya. It's not that avidya will overtake your vidya. That is mudiyada. Adi mudiyada. Bridge has collapsed. So you can't retrace your steps back. You can say the gross cannot influence the subtle. You can say so. Having put that effort and acquired vidya, it can't. Okay. Sir, if I can hold on because I'll come to you, sir. Hariji has been wanting to say something. Yes, sir.
Guruji, coming back to the Advaita, Dvaita and Vishishta Dvaita.
Yes, sir.
If we now take the champion of Advaita, Jagadguru Shankaracharya.
Can I request you to speak a little louder, sir?
Okay, I will try. If we now take the champion of Advaita, Jagadguru Shankaracharya, he has established so many temples and 4 mutts in different places in India. Also, he has constructed so many slokas about different devas and devis, which itself shows that the Advaita, when it comes, it is only at the absolute level. At the relative level, even Jagadguru had accepted Dvaita and Vishishta Dvaita. In other words, he had no difference between Advaita, Dvaita, or Vishishta Dvaita. Otherwise, he would not have established the temple. The temple, if I go and pray, it is even at the ultimate level, there is a Dvaita.
Oh.
Because I have an ideal through an idol, and that itself is a Dvaita Bhava. But when you
Correct.
go for the next step, then it becomes the subject and object becomes one. So at that level, as you very rightly told, at that level, even the acharyas, they didn't have any difference in opinion. They accepted all the versions.
Correct. They had a unified perception
Yes,
because the experience of the self is the same, sir.
yeah,
All those who scale the Mount Everest, they said the same thing. The
yeah.
experience of that is because the goal is the same, but their expression of that is different.
That's it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have established so many temples like Kanchi
Correct.
and other places.
Correct. He revived the temple worship. Adi
Yes.
Shankaracharya, he, in fact, during his time, there was a decline. So he
And-
actually revived. So it's
Yeah.
just a symbol of how, as Hariji is saying, perhaps it gives the moment you go to a temple, or the fact that there is that worship and that whole exercise of worshipping an idol symbolizes a duality. So in a way, is acknowledging the journey until you come to the final experience that I am that truth. Thank you, Hariji. Yes, sir. Could you
When he was talking about snakes and ladders, I think snakes and ladders refers more to the circumstances that keep going up and down. But depending on your evolution, how you react to them, perhaps is entirely dependent on how evolved you are.
how evolved? Yeah. That maturity with which how you deal, that doesn't change. But if the challenge is far more than your capacity, you buckle. That's all. But my capacity to deal can't deteriorate. The challenge is far greater, perhaps. Yeah, Pritima?
There have been instances. For example, somebody's acknowledged somebody, some seeker has acknowledged somebody as a guru and, been on the spiritual path. And suddenly something happens and that seeker abandons the guru totally and falls back into his or her, bad ways, nasty ways with, kind of speaking of scandals, or goes back to whatever nasty habits. So wouldn't that be an example of coming down? I mean, like bitten by a snake and descending into, again, wrong ways.
You're taking a hypothetical case. Am I to establish a point on a hypothetical case?
But there are people who do that, they fall back into their bad ways. And I read about such people. I have heard about such people.
No, everyone goes through that phase where we slip into our areas of weaknesses and then we find it difficult to come out of it. So the momentum that we had, we fall off that momentum in a miniatured way. We all go through that experience. We're not able to keep that consistency being anchored onto that goal, isn't it? We all fall. Why? That is the play of avidya. That's the power of vasanas. That's the play of the mind. But to the extent you have the ability to deal or handle with the mind, that doesn't die away. That remains. It's just that a desire or a vasana which is more potent, more powerful than your ability to deal with, it overwhelms you. So you fall a victim to that mind's temptation.
But the thing is, it could be a sustained fall from the place of knowing where you were at the feet of your teacher or guru, and you have fallen into bad ways, and that state may continue for a certain stretch of time. And that stretch could be a long
No
stretch.
teacher would want a student to be stuck to the teacher. The teacher will say, get out. A guru's job is to make the student self-sufficient.
True, but what I'm saying is that isn't that an example of descent? I mean, and the
Not
person is
necessarily.
not able to pull back himself or herself to that state of knowing that this is, this is my right path and what I've fallen into is not the right path.
No, I don't know. You're taking a case or you're being specific to a particular situation or a context. That can't be a general rule, I'm saying.
Okay, all right, understand.
Can't make it as a general rule. But what if there has, whatever wisdom one has, everybody has a certain amount of wisdom. It could be insignificant, the least evolved person. In fact, the Shastras say, even the worst of sinners can attain the self, they say. I'm sure you've heard of that phrase in the Gita. Even the worst of sinners can attain the self.
Yeah, that was, I think, our last class before we left.
There was a mention of that. Yes,
Yes.
recently we did in the text as well. So when we take that, it gives us great confidence and encouragement, because I know I'm not that kind of lowest of sinner. So that journey goes on, the challenge goes on, but one who is established in wisdom, to that extent, they don't lose that wisdom. In
Right.
fact, they say even to be born as a human, the amount of karma, the amount of the journey we have taken and evolved from various beings to come to a human birth is said to be the highest, because only a human being alone can conceive the transcendental. That one aspect separates us from rest of the living beings, rest of living species. Only a human can conceive the transcendental. Only a human being can put in effort. No other living creature can put in effort. Can you imagine that? And what's the proportion? Okay, what's the proportion of a human to other living beings on earth? Other day, Reddy Garu, who is not here, he shared a thing. There are 6 billion, apparently 6 billion Earths. Like our planet Earth, there are 6 billion planets in the Milky Way. So there has to be some existence of life in some form. Even to proportionate a human being to other living beings on planet Earth, forget other billion planets. What's the proportion, man? 1:2? No, forget planets and so. With reference to human being vis-a-vis other living creatures, what's the proportion? 1:2? How many creatures are there? Huh? Countless, no? In fact, they say it's infinite. So there are that many living species on planet Earth itself. And amongst them, to be born as a human, we don't know the value of being born as a human. We don't know. And having been born as a human, what are we doing? What are we doing with this opportunity? What a waste. Kicking away the opportunity. That's why he says, scarce indeed one realizes the self, he says. In a generation, in this century, only 1 or 2 realize the self. What? Out of 7 odd billion people, 1 or 2 realize the self. We all must start mourning for the next 15 minutes. Because seriously, we do not know what we are losing. Now, what would be the grief if something you have lost is very valuable? Pridima, can you contain that grief within you? You can't. It's just inconsolable, the loss, isn't it? But when I say you have lost something which is the most valuable to you, Mahati Vinashti, the Shastras say. And if you don't feel the loss, what does it mean? You don't know the value of what we are losing. It's like me talking to Sarah. It's all it is. No effect talking to Sarah about Vasanta. Correct? Wasting my time. So these masters, in spite of, it's not easy to convey that spirit of the knowledge, convey the knowledge of the self, to the waker. In spite of it, they don't compromise. They keep trying with the hope that they convey this knowledge to someone. So continuing in the 15th verse, can we have, okay, so yeah, Shashima, sorry, she's raised her hand, I didn't see it.
Yes, Guruji. We
Can
were
have
talking.
are you in a
Yeah.
position to switch on your camera, please?
Yes,
better,
Guruji.
thank
Mm. So we were earlier talking about a hypothetical situation where the person fell to the lower, I mean, to the vasanas, right?
Yeah.
So in that context, this is just my thought. Probably the person thought that the person has evolved to a certain extent. That was just a perception. And probably the person had not progressed even that much, whatever is required to to come up till that level. So probably that was the reason that the person fell back. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. In the sense, the ability to deal with a stronger desire,
Yeah.
because the vasanas vary in intensity.
Yeah.
If I have 10 units of strength, I can handle vasanas up to 10 units.
Yeah.
But if I have a vasana which is 70 units, my
Yeah.
10 units of intellectual strength can't contain that vasana.
Can't contain.
I
Yes.
fall a prey to it.
Yeah.
This is where we have to be extremely cautious. It's like don't they say, when the floor is slippery, you got to be very careful. You got to mind your step.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're walking on ice.
Yeah.
Very slippery. You got to be careful. So those areas where you know you have a weakness
Weakness.
and you are susceptible to fall, you got to take greater care.
Get greater care. Yes.
It's
Right.
required.
Guruji. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, now can we have the 15th verse translation, Urvati? So, in the rest of the verse, the second half of the verse, in fact, he says, Bhuta bhavana bhuteshu deva deva jagatpate. So, Bhuta bhavana means, O source of beings. And then he says, Bhuteshu, O Lord of beings, O God of gods, Deva Deva, and then Jagatpate, O ruler of the world. All of this will not make any sense to us, like nothing will make sense to Sarah. Oh God, we'll say, you will not ahead, but yet what are we caught up in? Complete avidya. What? My life, my world, my ego, my problems, my desires, my wants, my expectations, my life, what to, what not to, that all I'm worrying about. Am I ever thinking, I remember this idea. Would you ever get up, or would you ever ponder and start suspecting yourself, sir? So much you hear, do you ever suspect that, is this all real? They say so much of the world is illusion. Is this real or is it an illusion? Am I this? Am I not that Brahman? Do we even suspect that? Not now, during the course of your day's activities. If you have the slightest of suspicion, these masters are doing their job, because that bug has got into you. But imagine if that thought itself is not there, what will happen? Oh my God, nothing can be done. Impossible. So it's not easy to convey what is being conveyed. I'm only trying to tell you. Not easy. So quickly go through what these mean. Source of beings means, just like the mind is the source of the dream world, Brahman is the source of the entire waking world. Lord of beings. Just like petrol is the lord of all movement. No movement is possible without petrol enlivening it. Without petrol giving life to it. No vehicle moves. But it would not, petrol would not interfere with neither the direction nor the speed of the vehicle. But yet no vehicle will move without petrol. That sense is a lord. Petrol is a lord of vehicles or movement. But petrol doesn't determine the direction or the speed. You take the direction you want, you go down the road and crash or reach home safely. What has got petrol to do with it? Whether you evolve or devolve, what has got Brahman to do with it? Nothing to do with it. But yet it's the Lord. God of gods. Gods always refers to the illuminators, which refers to Sanjay, you know what the gods mean? The God of gods. Gods always refers to
The senses, no, the Indriyas.
context, we can say the senses, but
Okay. Oh,
largely when we use the word gods, the plural gods means, any idea on the floor? Plural gods. Devas means what? Gods symbolize, Sanjay, it means limited goals. What are these gods and goddesses? In most simple way, gods and goddesses
yeah,
symbolize human pursuit being divinized.
yeah, like wealth and things like
Correct.
that. Yeah,
Pursuit
yeah,
of wealth
yeah. Mm.
has been, is, and will be one of the primary objective of human effort.
Mm.
You like it or not, constantly you're trying to acquire wealth. So they say, hey, wealth is only Lakshmi pa, parvala. Acquire. But acquire it in an honest way. Don't forge documents and acquire wealth. No. I'm forging documents to acquire wealth. I don't want to do that. Why want to forge documents? I will. The worst I heard, I've not witnessed to that. Worst I heard was a guy took a thumb impression from his mother's dead body. Mother was ground floor, one son first floor, second son second floor. When news came to him, his mother passed away. He took his mother body to the first floor. In the wee hours, she passed away. Took her, he made the arrangement documents, got her thumb impression onto the stamp papers, and done the needful, and then disclosed to the family that she is no more. And how it was, because others saw residue of the thumb impression on the thumb. He didn't do a clean job of clearing up the ink mark was there, so they could find out. Don't take mention of an institution. You're not being. 1 minute. You speak so that they can hear online also. Don't take names, please. Okay.
For a mentally retarded child, there should be a legal guardian after 18 years. So you have to have a guardian. The parent, natural parent will not be the guardian. Even if it's a natural parent, it has to be a certificate issued by the government. So a child was taken home by the siblings. And then when the child came back, they observed that there was ink on this thing. And then they explored and they found that all the property belonging to this child was actually transferred in the other siblings' name. And then they had to take it up and complain to the police and got it restored. Not only dead Guruji, even if you're mentally challenged also, they can do that. They can play with anybody.
So just to arrest that negative attitude, not to creep into acquisition, they divinized wealth. So pursuit of wealth is not wrong if it is pursued honestly. So when you worship Lakshmi, the crookedness of the mind, the unethical attitude of acquiring it is kicked out. So gods, power, disease, marriage, every aspect of one's growth of one's life is divinized with a ritual, with a prayer, with an idol, isn't it? Only to ultimately remind you of the absolute God, which is Brahman. So you are the God of gods. Oh, Purushottama. He's qualifying it in the West. You are the God of gods. And lastly, he says, you are the ruler of the world. The world is nothing but all the various laws are functioning. Jagatpate. Jagatpate is the word used here. A ruler of the world means that which governs all these laws. The ruler of all these laws is Brahman. See, again, as I said, it doesn't make much impact on us. Remember talking to Sarah. No effect. Unless until you start contemplating on it. At some point in your day, you should reject what you're asserting and start asserting what you're rejecting. You don't suspect you're Brahman. Start asserting that. Rejecting what you think you are. That's a thing we need to exercise. That's a sadhana. Pratasmarami hridisam spuradatma tattvam satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam yat swapna jagara sushuptamaveti nityam tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangha. It starts the first thing, the most auspicious thing you do before you even do your swadhyaya is to say this: I am that self, not this assemblage of elements. And then thereafter, whatever you're doing, as we learned, is to sharpen your intellect, exercise, gain the wisdom, is to only negate, to get rid of the bondage of your attachments and desires and avidya. So we have said so many times, real wisdom is only gathered in 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. There is no wisdom gathered beyond 6 a.m. So if you do that to the core, with the purest of intent, unknowingly you are what? Asserting what you're rejecting, rejecting what you're asserting. It's happening. It's a continuous process, a silent process. Okay, ma? 4 o'clock. Okay. There is no, you can't change beyond 4 to 6. On the time lida pannu. Okay. Annapurnama, you had something to ask?
Yes, Guruji. We have been seeing continuously that Shastras say that this world is a projection of our mind and it's not real. And in that case, are we to live this life like watching a movie? Though we know it is a projection, we are affected by the emotions we see on screen, and we cry, we laugh, we get angry. Are we to experience our life in this universe like watching a movie?
Ideally, if you are able to do so, please do. See the drama going on the screen, understands the projection. Don't laugh and cry with it. But the problem is when you go to the theaters, people make far greater reality. You know, all the drama that's going on, some new movie, what is that movie? All these funny names these fellows get. Some Purush. Here also we're talking of Purusha, they also talking of some Purusha. Adi Purush. Some movie going on. They said they had reserved a seat for Hanuman.
I came across a review saying they need not reserve. All the seats are empty and available for Hanuman.
This is what will happen if you do unnecessary drama. They put a seat for Hanuman to come, and one monkey came and sat. Monkey mind fellow came and sat on that, and then all fellows started hitting that fellow, and physical galata. It was a fist fight going on in the theater. Now, if you can be in the theater and see all the drama on the screen and off the screen, nothing will happen to you. That is life. You understand there's so much drama going on. But if you become a part of the drama, then finished.
Yes, Guruji.
So there's a message in that analogy, is just to convey to us that one has to be a sakshi, one has to be a witness. Okay.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you.
Yes, Sanjay.
Guruji, I'm going to ask a question which I know is a bit naughty.
You
But
better watch out. I'll come to London and give it back to you.
and I know that it probably stems from my own laziness, but I gather that an argument is made that why do we only perceive God in mandirs? Why do we need certain external stimuli to generate a certain quality within us? Why is it then that we're so insistent on this Brahma Muhurta of 4 to 6? Why are we insisting on that? We can only get it in this material time space, in this material time. Why can't we? Surely we should be able to generate that quality of educating ourselves and improving ourselves at any time, whatever time suits us. Why does it have to be this 4 to 6 a.m.? Are we not tying our development to this material thing, this idea of time?
See, what is said is, beyond a point, we don't have answers why, but we can keep asking. What is said is, at that hour, between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., whatever sattva, whatever sattvic guna you have, it actually surfaces. So if you have to evolve, if you want to tap that spiritual wealth, to invest it, you need to be awake at that hour to tap that wealth. Otherwise, it's not accessible. It's like you go to your bank and say, oh, I want to reinvest my investment. So this investment is locked for 2 years. You can't touch it. Okay, I'll keep quiet. When you come back December 2024, then only you have access to investment. You have invested, it's locked. You don't have access to it. They will do what they want to do. That kind of concept. So the sattva only only surfaces for 2 hours. Whatever, let's say if you have 20%, the 20% manifests the entire 24 hours.
But then we can say that God can only be found in mandirs, and we can say we don't know why, it's just true. Like,
what is found in mandirs? I'm sorry.
Only God.
No, who said
but
that?
We can't. No, I'm not saying that's a truth. But one can say, if we just say that we can only the sattvic hours are only 4 to 6, without any further qualification, then we can use the same model without any further qualification of just saying God is only in mandirs.
No. Okay. No, not in. Please, I don't think we can extend to say that. Why we say early hours is because the guna surfaces, manifests at that hour. It is optimum at that hour. And
But is that an
thereafter-
objective truth or is that just subjective? Like for some people,
it is-
okay, I'll use myself actually. I won't bring other people into it, but I feel at my greatest peace at before bed, before at nighttime. Once my day is over, once everything is finished, that's when I feel peace. In 4 to 6, I can't say it's there, and I understand that's probably I'm rationalizing my own laziness. But it kind of like makes me feel that okay,
somebody needs to whip you up out of your bed.
yeah, I'm sure
Usually-
that's the case.
Usually the guru does.
I always take the
Guru
higher word,
does.
but it feels
Get me
like
the
4 to
ticket and I will do the needful. Get me there and I'll whip you out of your bed 4 a.m. Okay. It's not subjective, Sanjay. It is almost like a universal law. It is a spiritual law that these gunas manifest. As you know, Sattva 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., Rajas 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Tamas 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. Plus minus, this is what it is. And all indulgent activities are always done sundown, whether it be in India or whether in London. Whichever part of the world you are, people become more indulgent usually at the later part of the day. Any indulgence. Why? Because it's a tamasic activity. You want to do anything constructive, intellectual thinking, they say early to bed, early to rise, get up early and think, you're fresh. You can't do that at the end of the day when your vehicle, that is your mind and intellect, which has driven you from experience to experience. You have had so many experiences in the day. End of the day, you will be tired. So think fresh, they say. So there is a greater meaning to those simple phrases that we have all heard. But philosophically, it has a logical thought to it. It's just that one has to shed that little bit of tamas to experience sattva. But I must also confess, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the best time to sleep. Those who don't get up, they say, oh, Guruji, actually it's the best time to sleep. So they will convince you that you are missing the best time.
No,
Actually, they give scientific logic and say that is the time you actually have dreamless sleep also. So therefore, I don't lend my ears. So I will not lend my ears anymore to you, Sanjay, because
my intellect knows
convince me.
you're right. Anyone who teaches anything like this always says Brahma Muhurta, you must. But
Yeah.
so I don't doubt it. I'm doubting myself, but it's such a deep doubt. It's like, why can't I do it in my own time? Why do I have to listen to the clock to figure out when the right time to do this is? But that's my shortcoming. No one else's. It's just
But
hard to
once
get there.
I'm sure you do experience it, but you need to experience it and then consolidate that, then it settles you. Okay. We'll come back. Wait. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.